And when you're looking at Ramadi in particular, or Iraq as a whole, or now Afghanistan, we've seen how after 20 years, how we essentially rushed to failure at the end. When we didn't even have to go back to the Soviets. We didn't have to go back to 3 British incursions in the 1800s and early 1900s. We didn't have to go back to Genghis Khan or Alexander the Great. We had 20 years of our own experience to learn and adapt and prepare. And yet it ended up the way it did. When you conceptualize that or think about it, take a breath or talk to people about it, especially parents who ask you, hey, was my son or daughter's sacrifice worth it, when they're looking at what's happened in Afghanistan, how Iraq looks right now. How do you conceptualize that personally? And then what do you tell them? What's your message to them?
The thing is, when we as a nation go out and try and have an impact on the world, that's going to be a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do. And, you've probably heard me say before that if you're going to go to war, you have to have the will. And the will that you have to have when you go to war is you have to have the will to kill. And when I say kill, I don't just mean the enemy, because when you go to war, you are going to kill innocent people. That's just what's going to happen. So you have to have the will to kill, and you also have to have the will to die, because if you go to war, Americans are going to die. So I think we need to weigh that very heavily. I don't think we do a very good job of weighing that. I think our ego allows us to say, well, we have smart bombs, so we won't kill any civilians and we'll be the good guys and nothing will ever go wrong. And because we have body armor and MRAPs, we won't take casualties. And those two things are just wrong. So when we go to war, we're going to take casualties, and anybody that thinks anything different is just being naive. And when we go to war, we're going to kill innocent people, and anybody that thinks anything different is just being naive. But as far as these efforts, in Afghanistan, and you and I both have very close friends that have served over there. We both lost friends over there in Afghanistan. And look, it's 20 years. There's a bunch of positive things that came out of that 20 years. Number one, we didn't suffer any other terrorist attacks in this country. Why is that? Because there was pressure on the enemy over there. That's a really positive thing. And you mentioned Jason Gardner earlier. Jason Gardner was given a brief the other day, right as this Afghanistan thing was unfolding. And he put up a picture of Jason Gardner in Afghanistan in his uniform with his weapon. And he's surrounded by a bunch of kids. And in particular, he's kind of interacting with a young Afghan girl. And he says, this girl, in the 20 years that we were there, this girl got an education. She has an opportunity she had an opportunity to understand the world. And there's massive sacrifices that were made for this, but that is, at the end of the day, this is a positive thing that happened. Now, Iraq, it's the same thing. We were able to go there. And again, I always like to talk from a tactical perspective. When we were in Ramadi, there were people in Ramadi, the civilian populace in Ramadi, who was being tortured, raped, butchered, murdered by the insurgents. They were so happy and joyous that we were there to give them their city back and give them the opportunity to live a normal life and a stable life. And so there's these massive sacrifices that were made. And in both those cases, you could look at those cases and say, yeah, but in the end, what difference did it make? And if that's what your attitude in life is, like, you're a nihilist, right? Like, why do anything? Why make any effort in the world? We as Americans, we should do our best to try and help out other people in the world. But here's where the negative part comes in. The negative part comes into this is we need to understand what we're doing, and we need to put leadership in position that understands how to lead. And right now, the leadership that we have doesn't understand what's happening. That's a bold statement, right? That's a harsh statement to say that the leadership of the country doesn't understand what's happening. But when you look at the withdrawal from Afghanistan, everybody can, I shouldn't say everybody, but almost everyone in the world saw what was going to happen and what is going to happen. But like, this is so obvious. And yet we had leaders that seemed to be completely oblivious to everything that unfolded. and we're surprised by it and are continuing to be surprised by it. So we need to do a better job as Americans of electing people that understand the world, understand the globe, and understand leadership. And we failed to do that. This is my fault. This is your fault. This is our fault. We've allowed this to happen. We've put leaders in positions that should not be in those positions. And we need to do a better job. And if, like I said, I think we're getting to a point where we're getting to a rock bottom, where people are looking around saying, how is this happening? How do we let that happen? We let that happen. Look, something I say all the time, all your problems are leadership problems. So when I go work with a company, every problem that they have inside that company is a leadership problem. And guess what? Leadership is the solution. Leadership is the solution. And right now, we need better leadership. We need real leadership in this country. And if we don't get it, we're going to continue down this bad path where we look around and our position in the world is waning. And there might be some people that say, well, you were too big and too strong anyways. We were big, we were strong. And you know what? When you're the biggest, strongest person in the schoolyard, you can prevent people from being bullied. You can prevent kids from getting their Cheetos stolen from them. And that's what we should be. Doesn't mean we're the bully. It means we have the capability to stop other people from bullying. And that's the way we should be. That's the way America should be. And I think that's the way we need to get back to.